everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, August 26th, 2026. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Present?
Vice Chair Ramsey,
Present.
Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Lesner-Buxton, Commissioner Nielsen.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. And do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, Chair, there's no changes to the agenda.
All right, great. And then we do have some written public comment, which they all came in within time, so you should have seen it. There's the one from Jim Marshall and Douglas, and the several on one of the tree items, which we can reference when we get to that point. And there wasn't anything else that came in, was there? No, okay, thanks. And that takes us to verbal public comment. And I don't have all the language that goes with this, but basically, any member of the public that wishes to speak before this committee, see if I can do this from memory, may do so at this time. If it's not an agenda item, if it's an agenda item, we'll call your name when we get to the agenda. When we call your name, we just come up and we'll have 2 minutes on the mic. And I have one speaker slip, and that is for Patrick Melroy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hello, Commission members. Thank you for holding your public comment at the front of your meeting. I appreciate that. I am Patrick Melroy, a parent living and working in Santa Barbara. I want to request that you return to permitting the Lobster Joe summer camp on our downtown beach. My daughter has attended the camp for the last several years, and it remains her most favorite camp experience. This year, we had to drive to Goleta Beach for her to attend. This changed our commute dramatically for 2 weeks. Never mind the carbon footprint and the extra time. The drive required me to pass several ice cream shops, which I had to say no to day after day. I'm not sure if you understand what it feels like to have people ask you for the same thing over and over and over again from the back seat while you're trying to drive, but it can be exhausting. Finally, after 2 days, I gave in and we ate ice cream every day after camp. This was a huge win for both of us because I no longer had to say no to an obviously good idea, and my daughter got to see that I was wise and cared about her. In the past, when the camp was on our downtown beach, we would hop on our bikes and head down to the camp, a simple and quick trip. If you haven't seen the camp in action, I encourage you to go. It is a wondrous thing that creates lasting and important memories for kids in Santa Barbara. It will be included in the reflections of the best parts of growing up here. The staff and management of the camp have always impressed us as a family. The staff is professional and friendly and consistent, and the camp feels safe and controlled. I do not understand the complex reasons why some camps are permitted on the beach and others, like Lobster Joe's, with an incredible operation, is not. Please help me reduce our ice cream budget and let Lobster Joe back on the beach. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I would have to work hard if I ate all that ice cream every day. All right. That's all the speaker slips I have. Do we have anybody online?
We do have one person online. We have Gail Osherenko. Gail, if you were wanting to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality in the Zoom control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. I will say for those who are wanting to speak on an agenda item later in the meeting, please raise your hand when the item is under discussion. I'm going to unmute you.
Hello,
Yeah,
Ms. Osher.
actually, I just want to speak on the issues about West Beach Park when they come up.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure to call on you then.
Thank you.
All right. And there's no one else?
There's no one else.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, that takes us to the Commissioner Committee assignment reports. I'll just start on my left with Commissioner Nielsen.
Nothing to report for this month.
All right, Vice Chair Ramsey.
Nothing to report this month.
And Commissioner Aldana.
Nothing to report this month.
Commissioner Clark.
I was on vacation, so I do have nothing to report this month. Sorry. I was on vacation. I did not attend STAC. I have nothing to report.
And Park was canceled this month, and the IPM meeting's actually tomorrow. So nothing to report. All right, and then that takes us to commission and staff communications. Do we have anything there?
No, Chair, nothing to share.
All right, thank you. And that then takes us to our ceremonial items and employee recognition. Anything there?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
McGill and Commissioners, Julie Thomas, who is our recreation coordinator, received recognition for 20 years of service to the city. Some of you may remember seeing Julie. I believe everyone on this commission was here for her adapted programs presentation. She's been a key part of our youth programs for many years. Back in the day when we participated and were contracted with the school district to do the AOK program, she was involved in that. She currently works in the Recreation After School program. She's also very, very integral to our summer camp programs and ensuring that we provide equal access for all children to those programs. So she's very much engaged in adaptability and different special projects that we have.
All right, well, thank you, and congratulations to Julie. Obviously performs a vital service, and aside from the presentations, I think I last saw her at one of the Cook's Apprentice, actually the Culinary Apprentice program with her daughters, when I remember seeing her. So, yeah. All right, and that takes us to consent items. We have the summary of council actions. Unless anybody has any comments or questions, those are just for our information. And, no, okay. That then takes us to the minutes with the recommendation from the last meeting. Well, 2 meetings, actually, and we'll take them separately. The first is that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the special meeting of July 15th, 2026. And that is the meeting that was held at the offices on Laguna. Do we have a move to approve?
So moved.
Chair McGill, could you speak up?
I'm sorry? Oh, okay, I'll get closer to the mic. The first is to waive the reading and approve the minutes of the special meeting of July 15th, 2026, which I believe was the State Street Master Plan review.
So moved.
All right.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And I believe anybody can vote whether or not they were there. Is that correct? Okay. Just thinking quorum. All right, we have approval, and then the second is to waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 22nd, 2026.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, great, thank you. And that brings us to trees. Welcome, Mr. Slack.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee application for review is the request to remove an American sweet gum. This is a street tree located within the parkway at 212 La Jolla Drive. The applicant was requesting the removal of the American sweet gum due to improvements on the property. They're currently in the planning phases of constructing an accessory dwelling unit, or they hope to construct an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU. Which essentially involves redeveloping the existing garage into livable space. The driveway goes away, gets converted to front yard. They still want access and parking on site, and the only feasible location to put the driveway, the newly proposed driveway, puts it in direct conflict with the existing street tree. The committee reviewed the application. On site, we looked at the site plan that was included with the application materials. It is pretty straightforward in that there's really no feasible location to provide access and a driveway to the property if the ADU moves forward. So there was pretty quick consensus that it was a practical and reasonable development of the property. The applicant, in conjunction with the application, did express a desire to plant a designated street tree as mitigation for the potential loss of the American sweet gum. That's the African fern pine, is the current designated street tree species. The committee found that to be reasonable mitigation, and after review, made a recommendation to approve the removal of the American sweet gum at 212 La Jolla Drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Commissioner Aldana?
Yeah, just one question.
Yeah, just go
So,
for it.
okay, the ADU is going to go where the garage is. And let's just say to the left of the garage, is there going to be something there? Is that going to be parking or?
Chair McGill, Commissioner O'Donnell, the accessory dwelling unit would be where the garage is. The existing garage gets converted to essentially front yard, and then in the existing front yard is where the new driveway will be.
Commissioner Nielsen, you came and went, okay. All right, does anybody else have any questions? I do not have any questions. It seemed fairly straightforward to me. I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
We have someone online, but no hands raised.
Okay, great, thank you. Now's your chance. Okay, then, and this is just, if you want to speak, you need to have a speaker slip for this agenda item. Yes, yes, yeah. Commissioner Clark.
Would, Mr. Slack, would the owners of the property be responsible for the watering of the new street tree for a certain number of years?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, yeah, they're proposing to plant the tree. They would care for the tree, so it wouldn't be something that staff would absorb as part of the replacement.
And Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, I'll direct this at you, but I think we've had prior requests like this, and it's not said here in the recommendation, but usually these are conditional upon the permit actually being awarded for the development. Is that kind of implied in this application, that the removal is contingent on the permit from Public Works getting awarded?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, the commission could certainly do that. This one's fairly formal in that it's currently in plan review through the planning department, and the applicant has shown the replacement tree as part of the plan, so that would get memorialized and automatically be a condition of the project approval. So the commission could certainly still condition, like upon pulling Public Works permit or whatever language they choose, but this one's pretty formal, I think, in that it's kind of already shored up through the city's planning process.
Thank you, Mr. Slack.
All right. If there is no further discussion, is anybody prepared to make a motion? All right, if not, I will, but go ahead.
I'll move to accept the Street Tree Advisory Committee's recommendation and conditionally approve the tree removal of the American sweet gum at 212 La Jolla Drive per the replanting of the designated street tree.
Thank you. I'll second. All right, and if there is no further discussion, we'll go ahead and take it to a vote. All right, we have approval, and that takes us to Milpas.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next application for review is the
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, this is, yeah, we have
I
a
need to
recusal.
recuse myself.
All right, I'm sorry.
Yes,
And,
thank
yeah,
you.
And you won't be able to hear anything. I've tried. Thanks for the reminder.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next application for review is the request to remove an Indian laurel fig. This is a street tree located in front of 701 North Milpas Street. The applicant listed, this is also comprehensive development of the property. If you're able to view the attachments, there's a very large development proposed. It's almost like in full block scale, not just the frontage in front of the tree, but almost the entire block. They're putting a very large 4-story complex on the whole parcel. And there's just essentially spatial conflicts were listed as the main driver for the application. The applicant did list 3 replacement trees along the frontage within the 700 block of North Milpas. They identified the replacements as being New Zealand Christmas tree, which is one of the designated street tree species. We'll elaborate on that a little bit further later. The committee reviewed the tree. The tree itself is in good health. I think on site there was a lot of conversation about the proposed structure. I think when looking at it, one of the key factors is that it's a 4-story structure that's being proposed on the parcel. And when you take into account a very small setback and, you know, a 40-plus foot building, it's in direct conflict with essentially the entire property side of the canopy. In addition to that, there was some discussion about the below ground activity too, just the amount of excavation that would have to occur to support that structure below ground. Also causes significant damage and likely compromises at least some portion of the existing tree's root system. There was some, you know, mild conversation about, you know, could these two things function? Could this 4-story new structure work with this existing street tree? And the reality is the committee just determined that it didn't make practical sense. You would have to remove basically the entire side of the tree and then do some really weird things to the street side, and then a lot of unknowns just with the construction. I think there was certainly consensus and support, I guess, for the development of the property. That made sense. There was discussion after that about the replacement trees, 4-story building, sort of softening the facade and the scale. They obviously are pretty intimately aware of the size of a New Zealand Christmas tree, which is a nice street tree, but probably on the smaller side. You may remember that we looked at Milpas. There was an accessibility project where several trees were removed by the Public Works Department. As part of that effort, we modified the existing street tree designation, so there were more than just the New Zealand Christmas tree. The committee made comments that they would like staff to kind of work with the applicant, the design team, and there was interest in trying to utilize one of the larger street tree species, consistent with like other street tree designations. You know, there's a mix of small and large canopy trees, and there happen to be a couple that can get to a much larger size than the existing New Zealand Christmas tree. When we were on site and we were looking at the site plan too, as part of the sort of, I'm going to say, pedestrian master plan, the sidewalk's really wide, so you have an 8-foot sidewalk, a 4-foot parkway. We kind of brainstormed on site that maybe there was an opportunity for us to, you know, meander where the new trees would be, which would provide a little bit more space and make it even more easy to plant a larger canopy tree in that location. So those were just like comments that the committee made, kind of like working orders for me, depending on the commission's decision. They were in support of the replacement trees, and it really didn't make sense to ask for more based on just sort of standard street tree spacing, and there's already existing trees within that 700 block. And after review, the committee did vote to approve or recommend approval of the Indian laurel fig tree at 701 North Milpas Street. And they did condition the planting of the 3 new street trees as proposed on the application.
All right, Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, so this tree wasn't part of the Safe Crossings project evaluation that happened January a year ago. I think this is a new unrelated tree to that, if I'm not mistaken. And is its neighboring tree that we see in the red zone there on the curb, is that one also intended to stay during this project and stay during the Safe Crossings Vision Zero Public Works project?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, that's correct. So the existing ficus tree didn't provide any accessibility issues, like with vertical or clearance in terms of width. And then the much smaller tree in the foreground is proposed for retention. That is a New Zealand Christmas tree.
And did I understand correctly that the Vision Zero Safe Crossings project on Milpas, that work is intended to take place, and then would we want to replant the replacement tree for the fig?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I'm not sure the timing of the two events. So a lot of the Vision Zero. So if you remember from the initial presentation, we've created this transitional strategy where the existing sidewalks around the ficus trees is just asphalt, and that's going to be maintained essentially in perpetuity. So there's not a lot of work that's going on like outside of the intersections where there's lighting and pedestrian improvements. So there's some limited hardscape work throughout the Milpas corridor, but a lot of the hardscape that's immediately adjacent all of the fig trees is not being repaired. So it's a question of timing of this development with the Vision Zero project, and I can't speak to how they're in sort of like final design stages of that. I do know that, but in terms of that construction versus when this would be proposed, I don't know. The applicant would be responsible for comprehensive public right-of-way improvements within this block as part of the proposed project.
But for our purposes, we should treat this as a totally separate decision.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for elaborating, Mr. Slack.
I have a question, just in terms of the recommendation of the 3 replacement trees with the discussion of going to a larger tree. Was there any discussion, I mean, I guess what I'm really wondering is why not make that a condition to make it a larger canopy tree?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think the expectation was there's essentially 2 trees. There's the Sydney apple gum and the African fern pine, which are the larger of the designated street tree species. Staff has purview over that. I think that the committee felt comfortable with both of those trees, and so it really is just up to us to, giving a little bit of latitude to the design team to choose maybe which one they think works best. But we would, as staff, ensure that it's one of those 2 larger canopy trees.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, and then further, I think we have full intentions on working with transportation and trying to push for some, very subtle sidewalk modifications to allow for, the larger tree wells, which are going to support the larger tree.
But if we approve the application as is, ultimately, you're the decision maker of what tree goes in there.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, that's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? If not, we do have a speaker, and I'm going to apologize right up front. It's, no, I'm sorry. I've got the completely wrong address. We do not have a speaker slip. Maybe I'm the one not getting enough sleep. Do we have anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands raised.
All right, great. With that, if there, I'm open for further discussion or a motion. And I can make a motion if nobody else wants to. Okay, well, I am going to make a motion that we approve the request. I've lost my piece of paper here. Approve the request to remove the Indian laurel fig at 701 North Milpas, assuming, of course, that the project gets full planning permission and with the condition as in the application for the 3 replacement trees.
I'm happy to second as long as the commissioners don't have any further discussion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. May we have a vote?
Apologies. May we do a roll call vote?
Oh, because of Sebastian not being
Yes.
here, sure.
Chair McGill,
Yes?
Vice Chair Ramsey. Aye. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Nielsen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that takes us to Chuparosa, and we need to get Sebastian back.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next application for review is the request to remove a red flowering gum. This is technically a street tree in an area where there's unimproved right-of-way, so there's no sidewalk, located at 3425 Chuparosa Drive. The applicant was requesting removal of this tree in hopes of widening the driveway. They stated that the current existing driveway is about 8.5 feet in width, and their hope was to widen that driveway to allow for more access to the property, in addition to some other property improvements that are unrelated to review. The committee reviewed the application. We spent a lot of time on the site looking at the tree. They felt the tree was in really good health, a really nice specimen of red flowering gum. They looked at the driveway, a lot of analysis about the driveway, proposed expansion and width, which is towards the tree, because if you're able to make a site visit, the driveway is almost on the lot line on the other side. They actually share a wing almost. There's no wing there, but it's a shared driveway. And it was the opinion of the committee members that it was important to provide access to the property. An 8.5 foot driveway is pretty old, pretty narrow. 10 sort of minimum standard now in terms of like optimum width. We've gone from 8.5 to 10 up to 16 feet in width is like a standard driveway now in the city. So they did feel strongly about access to the property by potentially increasing the driveway, but there was pretty significant value seen in the tree as well. Then the conversation shifted to how do you do both of those things, and certainly not ideal, but we have lots of unique, interesting examples of red flowering gums that have been pretty extensively root pruned. You could walk down Chino, for example, and see lots of really huge red flowering gums that have had interesting stuff done to them, but they've been okay. So it was the consensus of the committee that, if the applicant really did pursue, a public works permit to modify the driveway, that root pruning could occur that wouldn't compromise the tree, still allow the applicant to achieve their goals, and kind of strike the happy medium. After a lot of review and discussion on site, the committee ultimately recommended to deny the request for the removal of the red flowering gum at 3425 Chuparosa Drive.
Okay, and I will just add in here that we've had, I believe it was 4 written comments on this agenda item. It was 4 or 5, but it's at least 4. And you should all have copies of those. Does anybody have any questions? So, Mr. Slack, I'm assuming that if you think it's okay, or if the committee thought it would be okay to do that level of root pruning to change the width of the driveway, the slight rise in the driveway would not present a problem in their mind, addressing the slight rise in the driveway. It looked like, it wasn't really uplifted like a lot of the places you see around here, but there was it struck me that there was a small amount of uplift.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think that when you when you envision the driveway expansion in width, you're severing the roots that are causing the uprise
Yeah.
too, so all of
Yeah.
that would be addressed as part of the improvements.
Yeah. So, God, I'm trying to, so basically, to expand the driveway as suggested, it's kind of at least 2 feet wider to get to what would be at least 2 feet?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, essentially,
Yeah,
I think that, we would want to try to get as close as we could to at least the minimum width, right? But we have a little bit of latitude to working with the applicant, it's with, we could shorten or maybe make the angle of the wing less dramatic. So we have ways to do it, but I think realistically, you're probably
Yeah.
encroaching 2 feet further towards
yeah.
the tree.
Because
Yeah.
that's quite, that tree is quite close to the driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Vice Chair Ramsey.
And when we talk about widening the driveway, we're specifically talking about the entrance, because there's nothing that would stop them from widening anything past the tree, like the actual lane drive itself, correct?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, that's a good question. That's correct. I think I don't know the full details of modification of driveways on private property, but with the driveway apron, you're within the right-of-way, so you have to pull a public works permit for that. I'm sure there's probably a permit process in place also for the private driveway, but it wouldn't preclude them from making improvements, and it would be way easier to widen the driveway than widen the driveway apron. But I think the big thing for them is just the ingress and egress, like right there.
All right, does anybody have any other questions? Was there any discussion about, and you know what I think about without prejudice, but I'll throw it out anyways, without prejudice, just in terms of if they got further down the process and it was determined that root pruning really was going to be detrimental?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, no, but internally, like at the staff level, we talked about this. I talked about it with some colleagues. It's a difficult situation because you really do need, I think, to provide access to property. Like that's a very important. It's seen as a very important thing. So we would try really hard to strike that balance. I think that, say they pursued this and then we ended up in a situation where as a result of those improvements, maybe it was concerning to the point where the root pruning was like, this is maybe detrimental, like in terms of not health, but structurally. I think that's a staff level decision as we're kind of working through that process if the applicant chooses to do that. So I don't think it comes back to the commission if they choose to pull a public works permit and do that work. That would be similar to any other street tree situation where we're working directly with public works staff to, solve the problem.
Okay, so at some point you would say, okay, this has become a structural safety concern to, and the balance is that we need to take action on the tree and we would not be needed again.
Yeah, Chair McGill and Commissioners, so the way it works is like with right-of-way stuff, like say an applicant wants to do driveway work or even fix their sidewalk, they pull a public works permit, they're assigned a public works inspector, and we work directly with them all the time on hardscape-related issues. So they would, in this case, they would demo that driveway apron, expose the roots, and then we would work with the public works inspector to provide guidance in terms of, what made practical sense in terms of the root pruning necessary. And then the public works inspector would essentially oversee that work, and then they would oversee the driveway apron being, reinstalled.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. I don't have any speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands raised.
All right. With that, I'll open it up for discussion or a motion. And if there is no discussion, then we would need to have a motion. Is there no one prepared to make a motion with no discussion? All right, I'm going to make a motion. And I am going to, recognizing that this is not completely straightforward and recognizing also that this is clearly seen as a neighborhood asset, and I can see why, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Committee to deny the removal request at 3425 Chuparosa, with the understanding that if the apron widening takes place and there becomes issues going forward, that the staff can deal with that.
I'll second it.
All right? Are we, are you good to go? Yeah. Okay. 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 I didn't look, I'm sorry. All right, we have approval, and that takes us to Calle Noguera.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next application for review is a request to remove 2 trees, 1 coast live oak and 1 incense cedar from the property, 3315 Calle Noguera. These trees are located within the front setback of the property. This is, the trees are both in pretty poor shape, but they didn't rise to the level where they would satisfy like an exemption from staff. So in that case, they get routed to the committee and the commission for review. And the applicant simply stated on their application that the trees were in poor health and they just desired removal. The committee reviewed them in person, kind of quick consensus that they both were, you know, in a declining state with essentially no real visible signs that the vigor could be improved, especially in the long term, or at all really, essentially. So they pretty quickly decided that the removals made practical sense given the condition of the tree. There was discussion on site about the need for mitigation, given the sort of deteriorating quality of the existing trees. And then if you're able to make a site visit, there are trees on the property too. So there was some back and forth at the committee level, whether it made sense to require a replacement tree. After the discussion, there was consensus that it did make sense to have 1 tree as mitigation. And after review and discussion, the committee made a recommendation to approve the removal of the coast live oak and the incense cedar on the condition that 1 replacement tree be planted that can achieve a minimum height of maturity of 25 feet, and that the commission could use the finding that principles of good forest management support the removal of the trees.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Slack? Given the height of the coast live oak proposed for removal, what was the rationale behind the 25-foot limit versus a bigger tree?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I think that you know, that's at like minimum height at maturity, so 25 is still pretty good size. And I think that, you know, while they can be spectacular, you know, the appetite for really, really large trees on properties can be pretty challenging. So I think just consistently you see, you know, 30, maybe 40 if you have a huge space. I think it's just the committee trying to, you know, ask for a replacement tree to mitigate, but not say something has to be 80 feet tall, which is, you know,
Okay.
really, really big for the property.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Aldana.
Regarding the 25-foot tree, was there a specific area, location for that tree?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, typically with the committee's recommendation, they don't specify. You know, they kind of talk about whether something makes sense on the property, and there's definitely like options for the homeowner to plant a tree. So then the condition is just like the height, sort of the height requirement or guide, and then you give the latitude and decision-making authority to the homeowner where they'd like to replace the tree.
Is the presumption that it will go in the setback, or does?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, in this specific instance, you know, we're super pro-tree, but we wouldn't consider any replacement tree, even if it happened to kind of fall within the invisible right-of-way there, to be a street tree in this specific area. So it would be, they would be the tree owner.
Yeah, thanks. Any questions? Okay, any more questions? All right, I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands raised.
Okey-doke, thank you. That opens it up for discussion or a motion is appropriate. If anybody, if there's no discussion, hopefully we'll get a motion. Here we go, okay. Oh, yes, I see. I'm not doing a good job of reading this today. Okay.
I will make the motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee to approve the removal of both trees on the condition that the applicant plant a new canopy tree with a minimum height of 25 feet at maturity.
Based on good forest management.
Oh, yeah, based on the principle.
That is correct, based on good forest.
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. We can go ahead and go to a vote. All right, and we have approval, and that takes us to Yananali.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next application for review is a request to remove a fern pine located within the front setback of the property at 1308 East Yananali Street. The applicant listed a few different reasons on the application to support removal. Those revolved around safety concerns with limb and potentially tree failure, and then just damage to property. The committee reviewed the application, did a site visit. They noted it's a pretty spectacular fern pine, if you're able to see it. Quite large, very healthy, pretty well maintained too. And I think that, you know, in terms of like the safety concerns, the committee's opinion on this particular tree is with routine maintenance, they're really, safety concerns remain relatively low in probability of risk. Specifically as it relates to a whole tree failure, like when we look at fern pine, that's not a species that we would say that we see with any frequency at all, where the whole tree will fall over. No tree's immune to branch failure, but again, with pruning, that can really be minimized. There was a lot of discussion about the damage to the property. If you were able to visit the site, there is a garden wall that is pretty displaced by tree roots, clearly visible. The tree's in close proximity to it, and you can tell that the tree's lifting that wall. There was really no clear definitive evidence or supportive information that suggested that it's actually impacting the structure. So the committee considered that to sort of be a moot point in terms of structural damage to the property itself, property meaning home. And then, you know, I think the wall it was their opinion that there's no doubt that the tree has displaced the wall. I think that they saw the value in the tree for the property and the street in full scale to be of such significant value that they didn't see the wall being displaced as like enough to support removal of the subject tree, and after review recommended denial of the fern pine at 1308 East Yananali Street.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, being that, let's just say a third of the tree is being trimmed by the Edison company, and the rest of the 2/3 tends to grow out, does it bring any, is that a problem by having part of it short and the other part grown out?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I think, we talk about it briefly during reviews. Length, or what we would call overextension can be problematic in terms of like limb failure. So without maintenance, that limbs will continue to extend and that could lead to potential limb failure, but relatively easily resolved through just outer perimeter canopy management. So if you shorten the branch length when you prune the tree, you're really lowering the risk of any potential limb failures. And even though the tree is certainly, it's kind of carved out, that's really not enough to consider that the tree's like unbalanced to the point where it wouldn't be structurally stable. But you would want to manage the canopy, of the tree on the side that's not under the voltage lines.
And then that would be up to the property owner, correct?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, that's correct.
So when I visited it, I'm about ready to do this to our African fern pine in the next couple of weeks, and doing an extension pruning. And I know we had a conversation about canopy imbalance, and it struck me that the part we're looking at, well, it's on this slide, it's on the right, but it looks like the part that extends more back towards the house, to an untrained eye looked unbalanced. Is that where you'd be looking at doing the pruning?
Chair McGill and commissioners, yeah, I think if you were going to write like a prescription for pruning, that's what you would do, is you would focus most of your efforts over the property side, and you would set, like you would call like a diameter class, like a certain size of limb, and you would reduce the canopy
Yeah.
on that side of the tree. These trees are really tolerant of, pretty heavy pruning too, so it really wouldn't be that big a deal if you really wanted to, reduce that over the structure, to really kind of pull it back, and then that would help with potentially preventing like limb failure. And it would balance the canopy a little bit more, but this has been going on for a really long time, the utility pruning, and like we don't see it and they don't tell us that they're doing it, but they're constantly self-optimizing. So they're continually putting wood down and dealing with like loads and wind, gravity, all these things. So they're constantly adapting to the growth, but certainly you would want to prune that side of the tree.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen around, and our experience and around town, these trees are basically as close to bomb-proof as you can get. All right. Yeah, we do. If we do not have any more questions, we do have one speaker slip, and now I do have the right address, but I will do my best. It is, I see you've put in parentheses, Mr. Poonam Prajapati. Is it Pati? Yeah, great. Please come forward. And come on, yeah. And you will have 2 minutes once the mic's unmuted. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, members. This tree is so big, and the sidewalk was 10 inches, lifted up, the public sidewalk. Now, the wall is about 12 inches lifted up, and it may look less good now, but near future it may fall down or damage more. So should we wait until too much damage happens, or somebody dies, car gets wrecked, or, because roots are under the house, and when rains with wind, everybody gets scared inside the house because it just moves. And some branches comes down because it's a dense, all the leaves. So little bit wind, it blows off some, branches. I trimmed many times, and then soon the Edison will come, utility company, and they will cut this side maybe at least 2-3 feet. And that makes more tilted towards the house. Besides that, let's say if it said okay to remove, I'm willingly to put 24-inch tree recommended by the committee, and whether rather be safe now than sorry, and beauty will come there. Once removed, cost me 20,000, 30,000 to remove, repair everything, put new tree, but I'm willingly to do it. So it's up to you. Well, thank you for it.
Thank you very much.
Chair McGill, if I could clarify, I misspoke. The committee made a recommendation to deny without prejudice
Yes, I saw
in case that there was physical evidence of like damage to the structure, because that clearly changed the conversation as it relates to this tree. I neglected to mention that.
Yeah, I saw that in the write-up, but thank you for clarifying. All right, do we have anybody online?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands
Okay,
raised.
great, thank you. Okay, I will open it up for discussion and movement forward. I'll start if nobody else wants to jump in. Yeah, I struggle with this one a little bit because, of course, they're tight yards and these are big trees. And big trees can make people nervous, and limbs can come down, and it's been heavily pruned. But we have a lot of experience with these trees in the city, and I've certainly had a lot of experience looking at these trees in 9 years. And I've listened to you saying that this is a tree that's very unlikely to fall down, and that if it's kept pruned, that limb failure isn't that much of a risk if it's kept in balance. And so I'm really, I struggle to remove what to me looks like a very important tree for the neighborhood. It's a big, resilient canopy tree that is basically drought tolerant and looks good pretty much under any conditions in my, the experience I've had looking at them around the city for the last many years.
Yeah, just to reiterate that point, our tree expert says it's in really good health, and we can sympathize with you, sir, but necessarily potential threat isn't something we really take into consideration previously. So just to align, I'm with the Street Tree Committee's recommendations. That's where I'm sitting.
Does anybody have something to add or a motion to make? Commissioner Nielsen.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'm going to move to agree with the stack and deny the application without prejudice at 1308 East Yananali Street.
Do we have a second? Okay. Commissioner Clark. Okay, we have one motion and a second. Can we have a vote? Okay, and we have a 4-1, it's approval. So I want to say before we, so the request is denied, but there's two things I want to make sure you understand. The first is, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. But the without prejudice, without prejudice means that if for some reason we got the structural stuff wrong, you can come back to us without going through the whole process of paying for an application again, and it would be reconsidered, gratis, basically. And the second thing you need to know is that you can appeal this decision to City Council. And I don't have the language in front of me, but the basics are that you've got 10 days to appeal from today, and I would talk to Mr. Slack about it if you're interested in doing that. They are the final decision makers should you choose to appeal. And should you not choose to appeal and come back because of prejudice and you want to talk about pruning and balance and all that, I would also refer you back to Mr. Slack as a great reference. Okay, thank you.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation is just a species street tree designation change. I have identified essentially all of Vista Del Mar. It's the 0 to 200 blocks. It's if you saw the map link or if you know the street or went out there, it's just a big loop. Tons of vacancies. It hasn't seen a lot of action in, probably a few decades. So a lot of tree needs. We have an existing designation of Chinese pistache, which we've proposed retaining. It's a low water use tree and still functional, but consistent with, urban forest management plan objectives and just our general desire to increase biodiversity and provide a little bit of utility to us as staff to find and, make decisions. We requested review of this street in anticipation of planting later this fall, winter. And staff actually preemptively proposed a couple species. If you saw in the packet, we proposed using the weeping bottlebrush and also the gold medallion tree, which are on the smaller side. The parkways are pretty narrow up there, so there's definitely spatial considerations. Both of these trees are low water users, but have different characteristics and growth habit and, add some visual interest to the street too, in addition to just utilizing the Chinese pistache. We talked about it briefly. The committee was in support and made a recommendation to add the weeping bottlebrush and the gold medallion tree as street tree designations for the 0 to 200 blocks of Vista Del Mar.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Nope. Okay, I do not have any speaker slips. I assume there's nobody online.
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom control panel. No hands raised.
Okay, and I will open it up for discussion or a motion as appropriate. Commissioner Nielsen?
Happy to make a motion if there's
Great.
no discussion. The gold medallion tree is maybe my favorite tree, and so I wanted to jump on this one. So I will move to designate the gold medallion tree and the weeping bottlebrush to the 0 to 200 blocks of Vista Del Mar as recommended by staff.
Yeah, I'll second. Sorry. All right, yeah, it is a gorgeous tree, isn't it? I think we can go ahead and vote. All right, and we're done. And that takes us out for this month. Thank you very much, Mr. Slack. And that takes us to the director's report.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, just a few things to share with you this month. First of all, starting this Friday, we have our comedy night at Career Recreation. This is something that we had with Jason Love Comedy a number of years ago, and he's returned to Santa Barbara and wants to restart his series. So the first one is, as I said, Saturday the 5th. And as you can see from your staff report, he's got someone who has quite a few credits as a comedian. We also have other performances scheduled for October 3rd, November 14th, and December 5th. Doors open at 6:30. Show begins at 7. It's very affordable. You can go hear comedy for $20. So we're really looking forward to bringing that activity back to Career Recreation. And then dialing backwards, on August 4th, the department participated in National Night Out. It's hosted by law enforcement and safety personnel. This is the second year the city's done it. It was held in the parking lot at Spencer Adams. Believe it or not, the night before Fiesta started, so it was a very busy week. We used the opportunity to have our Parks and Recreation Master Plan team out there talking about the master plan, and then also our lead park ranger, Ernie Rodriguez. So it was a really fun event, great approachable setting, and we were surrounded by all these other folks that we get to work with, so it was a huge success. Not on your staff report, director's report, but coming up this Sunday is the Primetime Band at Plaza Del Mar. This is a show that is supported through the Park Foundation. It's at 2 o'clock. It is a really fun event. It's a local group, lots of local musicians, and there's going to be someone selling popsicles. So if you're missing your popsicle fix this summer, that'll be the place to be. Given the weather, it might be perfect. So if you have a chance and can pop by, I think it'll be a great event. Thank you.
Yeah, the Primetime Band was a really fun last year at the band shell, and was a really, really well-attended event. I would assume it'll be the same again this year. Yeah. And do you expect the comedy night to sell out?
Chair McGill and commissioners, sell out. It depends on where you put it. So the ballroom has a capacity of about 400.
Oh,
so
okay.
Unlikely. However, we are hopeful that it becomes as popular as it once was. It's a great thing to do on a Saturday
Yes.
evening. That's
Great idea.
Not food, not bars. Just go out and have fun and listen to comedy in a city community facility.
Yeah, and we can all laugh a bit more. Yeah, it's a great idea. All right. With that takes us to, we have no old business. That takes us to the last item on our agenda, and that is the reimagination of the West Beach wading pool. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Commission.
Welcome
Thanks for
back.
having me. Holly Garson, Project Planner with the city's Parks and Recreation Department, here to talk about the West Beach Wading Pool site. Excited to get your feedback on this topic. You're probably well familiar, but here we are at the wading pool area, and adjacent to Los Baños Del Mar, the pool, also the harbor parking lot and the boat launch. We're at the end of Castillo Street, and we have Shoreline Drive, West Cabrillo Boulevard. Across the street, you see our Pershing Park, Plaza Del Mar, and the historic bandshell. Here you can see some existing site photos looking overhead, and then from Cabrillo Boulevard, as well as our pedestrian ways and the adjacent bike path. And here is what a photo of the wading pool looks like today. So it has been closed for some time, and we want to improve this condition. So this is our starting point, just to begin that conversation or re-begin that conversation and effort. And we're here to get early feedback from you all. We will be taking this same presentation, same topic to Harbor Commission in the fall, as well as hopefully City Council by the end of the year. And then from there, we'd like to develop some concepts based on the feedback and then go out for public engagement. So of course, if a project were to come to fruition, we're going to be back here at the commission as well. And simultaneously, you all are aware that the department is conducting a master planning effort for all parkland. So right now, they're still in the public engagement phase. They're going out to the public asking, what do you want to see where? What do you feel you need? So that effort will largely inform our project as well. So we're eager to hear that feedback. So let us know what you think, given the constraints, future considerations that I'll touch on. So we see the Santa Barbara waterfront in 1891, and at the end there is Plaza Del Mar, and it was just a public gathering space. And then in 1940, much more development. You can see Los Baños Del Mar pool, and then the original wading pool there in the distance. And Los Baños is a designated city landmark, and it's a National Historic Place, but the wading pool itself does not have a historic significance attached to it. So originally constructed in 1939 and then rebuilt in the 1970s to what you see on site today. And then we get to 2014, where we did close down the pool because we had a major leak. We were losing about 2,000 gallons of water a day, and that also coincided with a multi-year severe drought. So because of how the existing pool and infrastructure is built, the leak is located below that concrete slab, so it's difficult to locate exactly where it is and costly to repair, as you could imagine. And at minimum, to reopen the wading pool today, you would need further infrastructure testing. You would need to come up to code compliance with the county or the California Environmental Health and Safety Code, which means increasing water filtration, perhaps a separate new restroom facility located adjacent, accessibility upgrades, so lots of code compliance. And then in 2018, the department did pursue replacing the pool with a splash playground. So I have since learned about splash playgrounds, and they are a popular replacement for wading pools for a couple reasons. They're lower maintenance cost and concern. Many members of the public can utilize a splash playground. You don't necessarily need to know how to swim, so a lifeguard isn't required, so some less staffing and cost associated there. It can be open, longer during the year than a seasonal wading pool would be, and then when the water features aren't in use, you're looking at a more traditional park playground setting. So what you see on the screen is just a snapshot of the concept from 2018. And though that project was reviewed by this commission, I understand it was a joint hearing with the Neighborhood Advisory Council, and it did go to Harbor Commission. It also went to Historic Landmarks. So there was some community support was building for the project at that point. And all 4 of the public groups did favor this proposal, but they did reiterate, please go back and study some of the site constraints, so I'll touch on those in a moment. So at this time in 2018, the project was estimated to cost about $3 million. And then in 2020, we get to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there were some budget reductions, so the project was put on pause at that point. So fast forward, 2023, prior to restarting any project at the site, the department engaged Aquatic Design Group. So they were tasked to study what does it take to repair the existing pool, or what does it take to construct a wading pool or a splash playground, cost-wise. So we have this helpful data. I should also mention they studied the additional amenities that could go along with those improvements. So the data is super helpful, but again, we would still need additional testing to confirm whether or not we can in fact repair the pool as it is today. And then to take into consideration design and permitting costs to implement any of these projects could be up to $1.5 million. So here on this screen is a visual of some of the existing site conditions to consider with any new potential project. You can't see my cursor, but you have existing pedestrian ways, as we saw in those site photos, and a busy vehicle way, public right-of-way along West Cabrillo. You have an existing playground that is relatively fairly used. I do drive by there on my way home from work, and there's always someone there. You have an existing historic seawall, some picnic areas. We have to consider neighboring Los Baños, of course, and the harbor. We touched on that. But most notably, the existing mature ficus trees here in the front. There should be 7 of them, I believe, and these provide nesting bird habitat for 2 protected species, the black-crowned night heron and the snowy egret. So with any project that we pursue implementing here, that's, the number 1 goal is to provide some type of buffer with those trees to protect those birds. Other things we should consider with a new project, perhaps seeking guidance from our Chumash community and stakeholders and representatives. Maybe we include some educational components into the project. We also, want to make it a family-friendly recreation destination for everyone to enjoy. Again, considering Los Baños and the aging infrastructure there, and considering long-term impacts like erosion from sea level rise and what that could mean for the city's waterfront in general. So now the fun part. We would like to hear from you all on whether we should pursue a children's aquatic facility and a play space. What does that look like to you? Being mindful of the city's existing aquatic resources that we do have. Los Baños, we have the Oak Park wading pool, Ortega children's swimming pool, and then, of course, our Ortega Park revitalization project that's currently in the building permit process. So should that come online, that's a great facility for the community. It offers various aquatic resources for all ages and abilities, so that's exciting. Or should we consider another recreational use? Does it look like a larger children's playground, or does it look like a split situation, or do we have adult fitness of some kind? So, and again, just considering our historical and cultural components that we could include. Perhaps we pursue involving coastal ecology, so lots to think about there. As I mentioned, we're here. We're going to Harbor Commission on September 17th, and then we'll be at City Council and hopefully develop some plans from there. So thank you for listening, and I'll leave this up for purposes of questions and discussions, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to think what we'll try to do. We'll see if this works or not. Is do questions first and then discussion. And what I would, and I know that sometimes those things kind of we all blur the edges there. But let's try to stick to questions then discussion. And what I would like to do is, as far as I'm aware, we have 2 speakers, one online, and I have one speaker slip. So what I would like to do is take the public speakers between the question and discussion period. So kind of follow standard process as much as possible. And we'll see how we go. Vice Chair Ramsey.
Thank you. This is a great report. I'm really excited. I walk past here all the time, and I have noticed that it is a night heron habitat. You kind of have to plug your nose when you walk under those trees. So my question is, if it was to become a kid's pool again, would that be a health risk with all the bird feces kind of floating around?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey. So to your point, and what I touched on in the presentation, so there are code compliance to resolve what your point is, the concerns of the bird droppings and such into the pool area. So that would require an extensive water filtration system and, I mean, perhaps a buffer.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, we have a large swimming pool right next to those trees. We have a wading pool at Oak Park, and we have an open pool at Ortega Park. So the management of water quality takes into all sorts of considerations, including any outside sources besides humans. Quality of the actual water that comes in to the facility has to be filtered before it goes into the pool, and so on and so forth. So certainly it's something that we would look at like we do with any other open pool facility.
Okay. I just feel like the trees are directly over the pool, and yeah, so a problem for a different day. My next question is this playground part of this assessment, or is that not included here?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, the playground is part of the entire site, so it's certainly up for discussion and re-envisioning as well.
Okay. Great. That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Nielsen.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by buffer to those trees, or what would be examples of buffer?
Chair McGill, Commissioner, so perhaps it is just physical space. We would need to study depending on the project proposed for implementation, but perhaps it's physical space or another type of barrier.
What are we trying to buffer from? What is the thing we're trying to accomplish through buffer? Is it to not disturb the nesting of the birds, or to?
Just to provide some relief to the nesting birds and their current habitat. Mm-hmm.
And then I was wondering if you've had direct conversations, probably quite a few, on the waterfront adaptation plan and the concept activity that's going to come through that area?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, yes, the department is very much engaged in the waterfront adaptation plan. And this is an area that, in the current conceptual and planning, would be high priority for protecting in the event of sea level rise of certain areas. So it's easy to go online and you can actually see the proposal is essentially to hold the line at Cabrillo Boulevard with the idea that there's a variety of strategies and methodologies to ensure we still have an operating harbor. If necessary, amenities are relocated. In the case of this planning effort, it's assumed there will still be a recreational facility in this location.
Has that team had any direct requests or constraints that they'd like to influence this project with, or is it all just conceptual at this point?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, yes, it is very conceptual. As you can imagine, it's looking ahead 30 years under a series of assumptions. I would also add, actually, the work effort that's been done to date is excellent, and there's very good information on the city's webpage about the project. The goal with that project is to get it to a state of design such that the city could secure coastal development permits for the length of the coast from Ledbetter all the way to the edge of the property line. So all of these considerations would move forward. Secondly, when one thinks about sea level rise or any change in the environment, 30 years is a long time. We have many facilities in our inventory that are older than 30 years, but have been renovated as often as every 30 years. So part of considering what happens in this location is it wouldn't be reason not to do something, because there still would be 30 years to enjoy the space, which is potentially its lifespan anyway, before we had to reimagine it.
Thank you, Director Zachary. And then lastly, I know that we probably have to figure out concept designs before we talk permitting and funding, because those are dependent on the design. But what type of funding mechanisms for the scale of project that we're discussing are out there for us today?
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I mean, you nailed it. We're very high level preliminary at this point, so it really depends on the project and the funding source from there and the permit path. But we would definitely come back with that information should we have a project develop.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, so on 2018, on the presentation, I was up here, up on the dais with the Neighborhood Advisory Council. It was a beautiful presentation. For whatever reason, then, that's 8 years ago, I tend to believe that they talked about removing the trees. That's what I remember. But I understand there's 2 different species of birds, and but what's the possibility of like a happy medium, removing half, maybe the back half, and leaving the front half? And then when they're not nesting, move the nest, do everything properly, so when birds come back, they have their nest or somewhere to nest. I just feel that these trees, and the pool was there first before the trees, I just feel these trees will interfere of the kids having a nice, enjoyable day, just by the aroma. But I also understand the 2 birds, the species, but at some point, I'm just suggesting a happy medium and removing the back half.
So I think I'm hearing more of a comment than a question. So try to stick to questions, but if there's a question in there, it would be
okay, so
around
my-
it'd be around, what's the feasibility of
Okay,
removing
so
the trees?
my question would be, in 2018, in the presentation, were those trees supposed to be removed?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, no, there was never a discussion of removing the trees. They've always been identified as a component of the site and a site constraint. Any evaluation in a project like this to remove trees that provide nesting habitat would require extensive environmental review and impacts to the loss of that resource. Our approach and our recommendation as staff is that we find a way to reimagine this site with the trees still there and not go down a path of even discussing the loss of the habitat.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do you have other questions?
No.
Okay, great. Commissioner Clark.
I can't, my question is, before the pool became defunct, I don't remember how crowded it used to be, how many children used it, because my home base was Oak Park. My kids were always in that wading pool. Do you remember, Jill, how often it was used or how crowded it was?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, we'd have to go back in our records, but it was extremely popular, just like the Oak Park wading pool was extremely popular. The first pool was in 1935, so as you might imagine, there's a couple of generations of Santa Barbarans that have very, very fond memories of this pool. In fact, back in the day when it had a mushroom in the middle of it. So very popular, and you know, unfortunately, the situation that we were faced in 2014 led us to take a decision to close it rather than find a way to rehabilitate it.
And then my other question was, in other communities that have an active working wading pool, do they seem to be a draw for tourists? Does it help the tourism industry by pulling families into towns, or can you think of a comparable beachside town that does rely somewhat on the tourist industry with a wading pool?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, I'm not aware of that data. I mean, just in speaking broadly about the uses adjacent to the site, we do have neighboring hotels, so I would think we do have visitation from that area, the commercial area there.
Okay.
Okay.
I have comments, but we're just doing
Yeah,
questions.
we'll just do questions for now. And my questions have been addressed by all the previous questions. So I don't have any add-ons. So that takes me to our speakers. I'll go ahead and start with the one I've got in front of me, and that is James Hernblad. Did I get that right? Great. And you've seen how the process works?
Yes. I'm going to be quick.
Okay.
Good evening to y'all.
Good evening.
I'm the man responsible for the last 9 years of looking after the night herons and the snowies during nesting season. So I'm there from February till September, daily, because I take care of the ones that fall out of the trees and rescue them, and I would take the deceased ones and clean them up. And the numbers jump up and down each year. Sometimes I have 55 nests occupied with the night herons and so forth. And then the last 3 or 4 years, the count's been like 35 nests are occupied. But this year I have 55. So it shot up this year. So, and in 2018, they had a 22-foot buffer from where the fence line is, 22 feet back to give them room. That's okay, but the birds are going to be what they are. So the splash park is going to have to be sanitized frequently because the birds will poop on it when no one's using it, and they're night birds, so they're more active at nighttime. And so I like the pool because they grew up with the pool, the night herons, because they've been there a long, long time. We used to have picnic tables underneath the ficus trees. People used to play cards and do everything. So removing the trees is definitely not
concern with going with that. But I like the pool idea. Rebuild a pool, wading pool, because adults and kids alike can still use them at the same time. So other than that, I'm still working with them this season right now. I got about another week and a half left before they should be flying away. The snowies will be here till the middle of September. They
Okay.
stay till September. Night herons will usually be gone by next week.
Okay, great, thank
Just
you.
to let you know.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's very useful.
I'm going
Thank
to be
you.
involved with all the other things like
Okay,
I did
great.
in 2018, just because
We need to move on. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. But thank you very much. And thank you for the work you're doing.
all volunteer.
Yeah, well, let's hear it for volunteers. All right. And I believe it was Ms. Osharenko. Did I get that right? I wrote it down, but I don't have it in front of me. Great. And, okay.
I'm going to allow Gail to speak. When I call on you, please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Right before COVID, I first learned about this idea of having a splash playground there, and I had just started to make a film about the birds. I'm a sometime documentary filmmaker, focused on a lot of times on birds, and I was dismayed to learn then about this splash playground. Jim Hernblad is in my film. My film is at the website birdsoflosbanos.com. No punctuation, no spaces, birdsoflosbanos.com. Please, will you all go there and look at the website? It has a lot of information. It has a short film that was in Santa Barbara International Film Festival. It's been shown around town. It's streaming. There's no cost. You will learn a lot about the birds. I agree with Jim that perhaps a wading pool would work. I learned about splash playgrounds. You had already approved the splash playground idea, and when I first learned about this, and I went to every city council member, and most of them didn't know anything about the birds. Now they do. We will go back and talk to them if we need to. The birds like their water flat, calm, and about 4 inches deep. If you want to put in some feature for them, they would love it, and the kids would love watching them. I've spent a lot of time out there. Kids in the playground are fascinated by the birds when they're there. They want to learn more. We need more signage. We need more education. We need more information. Back then, it was the only site in the county where these birds nest.
Ms. Osharenko, I'm sorry, your time is up, so I need a closing sentence.
My closing sentence is, please give me more time.
Can't do that, I'm sorry.
A wealth of information, and I will be back to talk with all of you. I'm in Vermont right now.
Okay,
but I will
great.
be back.
And we've got your website, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, and we don't have any other hands raised, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, with that, I will open it up for comments, and I think what you are looking for is the comments in terms of what our thoughts are, what really, you're looking for specific feedback on the elements that you have presented to us today, correct?
Chair McGill, commissioners, we're coming to the commission first.
Yeah.
We've given you some options to consider. We will share those with the Harbor Commission. And based on the Harbor Commission's feedback, we will put together a staff report and go to council and ask for their direction. The intent of this is that we don't go off designing something that maybe doesn't have initial city-appointed and elected officials' support. So that's what we want to do. Is when we head out on a path to continue this project, what is it that we should be doing so that we can can begin the work and engage the community.
Okay. And I think for that instance, I think I would like to hear from everybody. So I will go, I mean, I've got 3 that have gone, and I'll just fill in with the 2 that haven't, which is me and Sebastian, haven't pushed the button fast. So I will start with Commissioner Nielsen. Oh, did I go backwards?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, so I just want to support either the wading pool or a splash pad. I just think there's something magical when you put kids and water together, and there's nothing like it. I'm not convinced that Ortega Park wading pool is enough for this whole city. I do know that Oak Park is not enough for the city. I know Ortega is going to be added to the mix. I'm not sure what our water play needs will be when that's done, but I think that with, drought continuing, that's going to be another, critical component to look at water use and costs and what we're actually been getting. But maybe as, balance that with the more dire our water situation is, the more kids will appreciate having water to play in. I know the ocean is right there, but there's something different about a pool and children. So I totally support a wading pool. I think is my #1 pick. Remembering back when my children were small and I was, a single mother, and sometimes it was just a little bit much, and I would throw them in that Oak Park wading pool and things would just magically get better. So I support that. 100%.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ramsey.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like the idea of having the wading pool back here, but I understand the values of the birds, and I think we're very fortunate to have these night herons nesting here. I would just like to see it offset from the trees as much as possible, because you walk down that sidewalk and it's white, and they have to spray it off, and so I just hate to create a bigger maintenance problem in this instance. And then, selfishly, I think a calisthenics gym would be great for adults, but I did want to bring up that question of the assessment we're doing of, what we're lacking in terms of park and what the community wants to see here. So is there anything preliminary we could get from those results?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, not yet. We will be starting the in-person community outreach work in October, and we'll have more to share with you once we get the details, as well as doing a community survey, 2 surveys, one statistically significant and another open survey, which we will have the results of by the end of the calendar year, and that will help us see what people's priorities are. What we're hoping for is that there will be some clear guidance, and then the idea is how long does it take and what the feasibility is of certain recreation activities depending on locations. Because in some cases it may not be feasible. We wouldn't put a wading pool in any of the Santa Barbara city parks. Where would it be feasible? If we have a site and there's a preference for it, obviously that would lend it towards it being selected. So it's always a work in progress. I think when we get the survey results, we will not have started concept planning for this project yet.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of space in there.
Yeah, that buffer sounds fair enough. And then we did talk briefly about tourism, and I do see a lot of young families coming out, going to the beach, but just kind of having this option here of a wading pool. I know every kid that gets to the hotel vacation wants to go to the pool immediately, and a lot of these hotels don't have pools, so this would be a good mitigation for that. And then last thing is I'm excited to watch this Birds of Los Baños video. So.
Okay. Commissioner Nielsen?
I'm going to throw you some questions first still, I think. Is it accurate that a wading pool, like standing water, needs a lifeguard, but a splash pad doesn't?
Chair Commissioner, that's correct.
Great, thanks. And it seems like we're assuming that the boundaries of the concept are for the existing site with the playground. Are you guys considering any, I'll ask you, please don't throw out any options that might push those boundaries if you have the flexibility with the waterfront adaptation team and the Harbor Commission to shave off 5 or 10 feet and change some parking lots. That might not be I don't know, worth the trouble, so to speak. But if it opens up some design space and a concept plan, I feel like it's worth it to consider those things right now. You kind of have a unique shaped lot. And then has there been any discussion, or is there any possibility to do anything temporary with that lot? Well, I'm sure like in whatever it was, 10, 12 years ago, I think we said it's 2014, it shut down. My assumption is that site is inaccessible, that the fence is locked, and there's probably been many prior discussions about could we fill in the pool and do something to make it a grass plot in the meantime. Could you share that history for us?
Director Zachary has the history on that.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, yes, many times, over and over. And from my perspective in my role and working with staff, this site has been a source of frustration, as you might imagine. But at the same time, we want to make sure moving forward we can do something that's feasible and supported. And every time we came up with an idea of what we could do, it triggers all these other considerations, including permitting and design, construction, even filling it in with dirt, and then what? So it just became way too complicated. So that's why you haven't seen any activity there. As for your question/comment on expanding this space that we have, I would point out that the multimodal pathway is adjacent to the location, as well as a pathway from Cabrillo Boulevard to the harbor area. Don't anticipate that we could successfully propose relocation of parking just for this project unless there was a broader proposal to relocate the multimodal pathway as well. And as you might imagine, it starts getting bigger and bigger and more complicated, and then potentially more and more difficult to achieve.
Yeah, understood. And I think that that's where the comment stems from, is that if the waterfront adaptation gives you the extra horsepower to reconsider that site in a more holistic place, but like maybe just doing something simple sooner rather than later is the right approach. And then I think I understood from our commenters that there's like a different impact on the birds, whether it's a splash pad or a wading pool. Is there a understanding on that, or?
Chair, Commissioner, I don't believe so. We haven't studied that biologically yet, but like a wading pool versus a splash playground, we would of course be implementing any biological mitigation measures and recommendations into any project that we propose.
Yeah, less so on effects on water quality. Maybe you're saying this, but just like what the birds prefer, and you know, if there's more disruption to the nests, depending on what type of asset we place on that lot. I'm sure that'll all be figured out down the road, but I thought I heard that there was a distinction in one of our commenters' minds between those two.
I have it. Can I clarify that?
Please.
What I think, I believe what our speaker said was that the birds started nesting there. The pool was there, and they cohabitated with the pool, and so they were able to exist, but they haven't existed with a splash pad yet, so that's kind of an unknown.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you,
known that they
Commissioner
could do the
Clark.
pool.
Appreciate that. Okay, and then I'm very much in support of redeveloping this and reimagining. I think it's a great thing. Thank you for doing it. I think my comments would be, like, if we're going to lean into that the birds are there and they're part of the city and residents, and that we should add some educational or kind of lean into that direction and provide whatever buffer and make it part of the site experience. And then as we have these other assets that are popping up around town, Oak Park, Ortega Park, the new one out on Kellogg, that we try to make this one distinct in some way rather than replicate what is elsewhere across the city, and find a way to make that experience unique from the other ones around town. Thank you.
All right, and Commissioner Aldana, thank you.
Okay. As far as the presentation from 2018, is that, any of that going to take effect? I remember it being an awesome presentation.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, if we get direction to pursue a wading pool, we wouldn't necessarily go back to the work that was done back in 2018 unless there's technical, engineering design work that would support what moving forward. If we got a recommendation to pursue a splash playground, we certainly would once again review what was developed then. It was very conceptual, and may or may not be the direction we would go again based on additional information that we have, including we do need to figure out whether or not we need to have a separate public restroom facility in this location, which means you need to find somewhere to put it. So all the site planning that we would have to do, we wouldn't do it having forgotten what happened in 2018, but it probably would evolve.
Okay, so as far as suggestions, as I'm looking at this, and you need a buffer, and maybe the bike lane could be redesigned, and the bike lane could be the buffer. So basically, right before the playground, maybe the bike lane could just go through that playground, just redesign it and go around the pool, and then go towards the parking lot. You got to get a little creative, but we're talking ideas, correct?
Yeah, I think it's just more conceptual
Okay.
ideas rather than design
Okay,
ideas. Yes,
conceptual,
thank you.
okay, so a conceptual redesign of the bike lane, and then for that to be the buffer. That's, I would go with the splash. I would like both. It'd be nice to have a combo. But if it's one or the other, maybe this one, we can go with a splash area. Then this way, there's no lifeguard, save a little funding. And then this way, the kids could just get wet, and because the kids got to flap their wings also, so.
Thank you. My turn.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
I guess I absolutely, truly understand the whys behind the splash pad. I mean, the one thing I think definitely needs to happen is that needs to stop being a vacant lot, and something needs to happen. So it might come down to, as you put it, doing the simple solutions that we can actually get done, which is where if I have a concern with getting too embroiled in redesigns with the waterfront adaptation plan, because I've seen in the city what happens when you start putting different projects together to make one grand master project, kind of everything grinds to a screeching halt. And I'd hate to see that happen here. On the balance, in my perfect world, I would go with the wading pond rather than or the wading pool rather than the splash pad. And I recognize that's a perfect world type of a comment, because I recognize the issues around cost. I recognize the issues around lifeguards. I'm not entirely sure which one I would think would be easier to permit, given the conversations around the birds. But the reason I say in my perfect world I would go with the wading pool rather than the splash pad is I think for a city of our size to have one wading pool at Oak Park that's open limited hours and is teensy. I mean, it's kind of the size of the one I grew up with in a town of 20,000. That seems really under-resourced to me. And it's a place where kids can really genuinely get wet and splash around in a supervised environment. And the other reason I'm saying that, and you referenced the new one on Kellogg, which I didn't know anything about until my hairdresser told me about it last week, and she raved about it, and it's basically got timed entries. It's so popular. I mean, they clear it out every hour so they can make sure that the kids don't spend all day there and everybody gets a chance. I mean, this thing is hopping. And that just, and this woman lives downtown and is driving to Goleta every day with her kids to go to a wading pond. That shows how much in demand something like that could be to me. And I recognize all the constraints around one versus the other, particularly the funding and the staffing constraints, but it seems like if you build it, they will definitely come. And I think that's really, in terms of the adult fitness and playgrounds and things like that, I think adult fitness, we've actually put some resource in, and certainly on my time in the commission, we've done the Cabrillo Ballpark. So we've got, and that's quite new, relatively in the grand scheme of 30-year lifespans. We've got some fitness equipment now at the Bird Refuge, limited. Dwight Murphy, the fantastic playground is, about a year away or less. So we kind of are scratching that itch, to my mind, more than we are the water itch. And so that's really where for those reasons, that's why I would put the focus there rather than on other recreational opportunities. And I think it's getting it done is really important. So whatever it's going to take to streamline permitting and execution and funding is really important. And I think that's all I have to say.
Chair McGill, it might be helpful to do a straw poll for the amenities, whether I heard both splash playground and wading pool. Just
How
so
do you
that
want
we
to
have
do
numbers.
that? Why don't we just do a
Just go 1, 2, 3.
And I'll just say, I would say pool versus, the questions are, do you want a pool versus a splash pad? And do you want something else? Is that what you want to know?
I would say pool, splash pad, not versus,
Okay.
either or.
Okay.
Who wants what?
So I'm going to go left to right. What would you say? Perfect world. Perfect world scenario. Commissioner Nielsen, pool or pad?
Is that the distinction?
Is that what you want?
There is no other choice. Those are the two choices.
For the
is
sake
what
of
I've heard.
this.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, you can say something else if you want to. Just so that we can say, we had this number of commissioners that favored and other commissioners that favored, so that we're accurately
Straw polling.
sharing your preferences as we move forward. It's an easy way to communicate to other appointed and elected officials.
But you basically want kind of one-word answers as much as possible.
Just
simple.
roughly.
Okay.
And if you're undecided, that's fine. Or
Okay,
agnostic,
got it.
that's fine.
Okay, Commissioner Nielsen.
Okay, I'd be happy with either. They'd be great improvements. And one or the other, I would lean towards wading pool since we have other splash pad assets in the county.
Okay. You good with that?
Yeah, pass.
Okay.
Splash pad, adult gym.
Commissioner Aldana.
Oh, mini splash world.
Commissioner Clark, top that.
Pool.
Pool. All right, and now I'm going to go back in order that I've got them. Okay. Commissioner Ramsey, Vice Chair Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to make 2 points. Yes, we have the new adult gym in Cabrillo and Dwight Murphy, but that's way on the other side of town. So I feel like there's really nothing similar in this part of the city. And that stirred something in you.
I'm just wondering if we're talking about the same Cabrillo.
The park with the rainbow arch?
Yeah, okay, we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a few miles down the road. And then, this is kind of a what if, but, we do go through periods of drought. I know it's a La Nina year, so expect it to be wet, but, is there an alternative use we could have for a splash pad or something we could do if we hit a sustained period of drought? Just something to consider, that maybe there's an alternative way we could use this as well. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Nielsen.
Chair McGill, sorry to interrupt. I just
sorry.
want to clarify. Are you speaking about a gym just in the exterior elements, not within a structure? Okay.
Yeah, just like a pull-up bar,
Okay.
or, something you could put under the trees. I'm not saying replace the whole thing with an adult gym. I'm still very much in favor of the splash pads, but, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen any communities that have ever accomplished a natural swimming pool or like plunge pond as a feasible application instead of a more built concrete thing? You've seen it in residential, backyards more commonly these days as a way to integrate the landscape and still have a play water feature. And it basically, brings the landscape to the edges of the
Point of
pond.
order, this is supposed to be comments, not further questions.
Well, you structure it as that's okay. We can structure it as you're asking of the feasibility of doing more of a plunge pool type of arrangement.
Yeah, I'm asking if it's,
Chair-
something we've
Chair
seen.
Miguel, Commissioner Nielsen, the question is fine. As you might imagine, a public facility is subject to very different regulations than somebody's backyard. So the closest thing the city ever had, and maybe Commissioner Aldana remembers the saltwater wading pool we had at Cabrillo Pavilion. You can't do that today. There's a lot of health code restrictions on open water, public water, that go far beyond what you might imagine that's in a private home.
Thank you, Director Zachary. And I think last comment is that the Willis Park splash pad being very popular has allowed for it to be difficult to have the safe space for different ages of kids, and wading pools and splash pads, we'll get a lot of kids, let's say 10 and under, but the difference between a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old is, pretty direct when you're in that. So if whatever we design or come up with, I think should consider how we segregate space for the different users and their abilities. That's it. Thank you.
Good point. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Is there a possibility of sending the 2018 presentation to the commissioners?
It's probably online. Imagine if you go online and go to 2018, you can find it. Or it'd be in that new record system we've got.
Yeah, just because I remembered a beautiful presentation, just so.
It's part of the public record, so we could reshare that if that's of interest.
Well, okay. I think it'd be great for them to see, for us to see it, And then also, as far as adult fitness, if there's little pockets, a little here and there, so the parent, as their child is having fun in the water, they can do a little adult fitness.
Okay, and Commissioner Clark.
I just wanted to, I know it's a known fact, but reiterate the fact it's very, very, very easy to find a place to do fitness in Santa Barbara. It is very, very difficult to find a place where you can actually get in the water at a pool.
All right.
There's like 20 gyms.
Yeah. All right.
Just a quick note, not everyone can afford, to subscribe to gyms, so just being able to provide that to the public, I think, is beneficial to the overall health of the community. But I genuinely understand.
It really
point
is
you're making.
beneficial, but we do have quite a few outdoor places that people can get fit, and very, very few pools.
Yeah, we're really pools.
Yeah.
We are pool shy, definitely. Okay. Have you gotten what you need?
I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, well then,
Appreciate it.
thank you. And I think that is the final formal item on our agenda. One informal agenda. This is Commissioner Nielsen's final meeting, unfortunately. He has chosen to abandon ship by moving house. So for a good reason. Congratulations on your move, and we'll be sorry to see you go.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to serve. It's been a good time.
All right, and with that, I'm going to adjourn, and we will see everybody, almost everybody, next month.